Make it sit. Good morning, members of the jury. Good morning. How are you doing today? Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you have anyone on the jury that saw anything about this case on news, in the newspaper, or have gathered information from any outside source? Okay. It's my understanding also that one of your colleagues provided donuts for you today. Is that correct? Okay. Well, that's a good person, whoever he or she may be. All right. Call the case, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Commonwealth of Virginia versus Stephen Rankin. Is the Commonwealth ready?
Commonwealth ready.
Is the defense ready?
Good morning, Your Honor. President ready.
All right, counsel, you may proceed.
Judge, we call Mr. Rankin.
Solemnly swear or affirm testimony in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did. I'm going to speak loudly and clearly so everyone, including the jury, can hear you. Tell us your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Rankin.
And Mr. Rankin, you are the defendant in this case. Is that correct?
I am.
You understand that you have an absolute right not to testify?
I do.
And that if you choose not to testify, no one can comment upon that.
Yes, I do.
But you've chosen to testify.
Yes, I have.
Why?
I think it's important that we're able to get to the truth of the matter, that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and the community can hear the full story and hear what actually happened from my perspective, because I was the closest one there.
Mr. Rankin, did you murder William Chapman?
Absolutely not. When I went to this call, I had intended to investigate a shoplifting. I didn't want anybody to get hurt. I spent a lot of effort trying to stop anyone from getting hurt. I spent a lot of effort with life-saving measures towards the end of it, and one of the first things I said after this was all I wanted to do was write him a ticket.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
8 years in civilian law enforcement and 5 years in the military.
When were you in the military? What branch?
I was in the Navy from 2002 to 2007.
And what did you do in the Navy? Any specialties?
I was a Master at Arms, which is Navy vernacular for military police.
And during that time in the Navy with the military police, did you have any particularized or specialized training?
I went to a law enforcement academy towards the beginning of my career.
Where were you stationed?
In Everett, Washington, and then eventually here in Portsmouth, Virginia.
When did you join the Portsmouth Police Department?
I joined the police department after I got out of the military in 2007.
What type of training did you undergo when you joined the police department?
We started off with basic law enforcement training, which is the police academy.
Was that the same or different than the military?
It was similar. It was a lot more in depth than the military.
And how long is that training, or how is it an academy?
Yes, it's the police academy.
And how long is that?
I believe it was around 5 or 6 months.
Do you receive any specialized training in firearms?
We do.
And what type of training is that?
We have basic marksmanship and Operation Safe Handling, but we also, when we receive firearms training, we learn use of force training at the same time.
Okay. And use of force, we're going to get into that at a later point, but just generally and just briefly, can you tell us what you mean by that?
Every department has a policy or a guideline for their officers on when and what types of force can be applied to different situations.
During the course of your career with the police department, was that the only training that you had ever received on that subject?
No, we get recurrent training every year.
Up until the time of April of 2015?
That's correct.
Do you remember the last time that you've been trained in either firearms and or use of force prior to April of 2015?
It would have been less than a year. I'm not exactly certain.
Do you receive any training in the police department with respect to the community and communications with the community?
Yes, we do. That's part of our in-service training. Every year we do a certain portion of training on how to speak to people, how to make people deal with people in a polite, respectful manner, and how to get people to comply without any sense of animosity, things like that.
Now, let's go directly to the 22nd, okay? Of April of 2015. You were working a shift.
Yes, sir.
What time did your shift start that day?
It started at 8:30 p.m. the previous night.
And you're in uniform?
Yes, full uniform, and I drive a marked police car.
And during that shift, did you, other than the morning of the 22nd at 7:30, did you ever have any contact with Mr. William Chapman at all?
No, sir. I never met him, never heard of him.
How did you get the call that morning to respond to the Wal-Mart?
We have two methods that we can be dispatched to a call. One is sent through the computer we keep in the car, and the other is through the radio, and it would have been one of those two methods. Either way, dispatch sent me to the call.
Did you have a choice?
No, you're not allowed to refuse to take a call you're assigned to.
Did you pick to go on this particular call?
No.
And the call was for?
It was for a shoplifter at the Wal-Mart.
And in the context of your training and experience, was there anything unusual about that call?
No, we get this call on a regular basis.
Was it a routine call?
As routine as you can get, yes, sir.
Anything in terms of the dispatch that had alerted you to any issues or any problems that caused you any concern before you got to the scene?
No, sir. Nothing unusual. It was a shoplifter call.
And you talked about how you're dressed. Can you describe that to the jury, please?
I wear a blue uniform with a duty belt that carries all our usual police gear, and a blue shirt that has a sewn-on patch that's our badge, with patches on either shoulder that say Portsmouth Police.
Any question you're a police officer?
No, it seems fairly... It's
How
written
about,
on...
how about the vehicle? Marked or unmarked car?
It's a marked car. We've seen photographs of it, but it has big yellow lettering on the side, maybe a foot and a half tall. It says police department.
Judge, there are a number of exhibits that I'd like to review with Mr. Rankin. May I approach the clerk and retrieve them, please?
You may.
You talked about what you call it, a service belt?
A duty belt.
A duty belt, I'm sorry, my fault. Okay, so tell us what's on the duty belt. Describe that to the jury.
When I describe it, I'm going to...
Judge, may he stand up, please?
You may stand up, sir.
I'm going to describe it as if you're looking down and it's in clock positions, so everybody can kind of understand what I'm talking about. And 12 o'clock would be my front. So at about 1 o'clock, I have where I keep my pepper spray. Next, at about 3 o'clock is where I have my sidearm, my pistol. And then at on my right side, I guess 5 o'clock would be a pair of handcuffs, and 6 o'clock would be rubber gloves. And then 7 o'clock would be another set of handcuffs. Most officers carry 2 sets of handcuffs. And then probably about 8 o'clock was my radio, and then 9 o'clock my taser. I'm sorry, I'm skipping. My flashlight is in between my radio and my taser. And then, like I said, the taser, and then 2 extra magazines of pistol ammunition, which we're also required to carry.
And what about a radio?
The radio was about 8 o'clock.
And does it have a cord that it connects to something?
Yes, it does. It goes up, and there's a remote microphone on your shoulder right here, so you don't actually have to grasp the whole radio. You can just grab your shoulder and you're able to communicate.
Now, at that point you talked about the weapon that you had. What type of weapon was on you at that day?
It's the department-issued pistol. It's a Glock Model 19. It fires a 9mm bullet.
Is there anything that's unusual about that particular weapon?
No, it's exactly as the department issued it to me.
And the ammunition that was contained either within that weapon or in the magazines, how did you obtain that?
That's the ammunition that was issued to me by the police department.
And anything unusual or different about that?
No, it's similar to what any law enforcement agency would use.
So when you go out in the morning, or in this particular case, you went out the night before, right? You left your house and you went to work.
Yes, sir.
Do you get dressed at work?
No, we get dressed at home, and at the time I had what's referred to as a take-home car. I actually take my police vehicle home with me and commute in it back to work. So when I come to work, I'm set to go to work.
Do you have a partner that rides with you?
No, we ride one person to a vehicle.
All right, so at about 7:30 or so, was that about the time that you got a call?
Yeah, around that time.
Now, I want to show you what's been marked as Como's Exhibit C2. Judge, may I display this to the jury, please?
You may.
May I ask Mr. Perot to assist? All right, Mr. Rankin, I want to show you what's been marked as Como's Exhibit C2. Judge, may he come down so he can see that, please?
They step down.
And we're going to go to the second page of that. At the beginning, it's titled Notes for Shoplifting / Concealment at Frederick Boulevard. Is that the Wal-Mart?
Yes, Walmart's at 1098 Frederick Boulevard.
And is that where you were dispatched to?
It was.
And the CAD notes seem to reflect that the event began about 7:18 in the morning. Do you see that on the right-hand side?
Yes, I did.
And what information, do you receive this information as this is what's being dispatched to you?
The dispatchers are supposed to read this verbatim to me over the radio.
Okay.
On low priority calls like this, sometimes they don't read it to you, they just send it over the computer, and this would be what I would see on the computer.
So this would have been the information that you had at the time that you went out for this particular call?
Yes, sir.
And again, with respect to this information, is there anything that's out of the ordinary, or is this just routine?
No, sir, this is pretty much what most shoplifter calls look like.
All right, and about 3/4 of the way down where my finger is, it says, dispatcher selected unit 151B. Who's 151B?
I was assigned to 151B that night.
So that's you?
Yes, it's not only my radio call sign, but it's also the district in the city that I work. So that's me.
What particular district? Is there a segment of the city that you were working in?
Yes, the city's divided into sections. Each is assigned a number. The section that I was working was 151B.
This is on page 3 of the report. And about 7:33, it says something about 151B circulating. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
What that means is I've arrived in the area, and I'm going to circulate in the area and look for whatever I need to look for. In this case, it would be the shoplifting suspect.
All right, and then the next notation is unit 151B, current location near the IHOP, and that's at 7:34 and 1 second.
Yes, sir.
All right, and what's that mean?
As I'm approaching in this case, as I'm approaching the shoplifting suspect, before I get out of my car, before I actually get to him, I'm going to call on my radio and tell dispatch, this is where I am and I'm going to be out with the subject. And in this case, I was across the street from the IHOP in the Wal-Mart parking lot.
So can you point where the last entry where you have your current location, where it says 151B current location, can you point to that IHOP, please? And what's the time?
That is 7:34 and 25 seconds.
And what's the next entry?
Emergency, clear the air.
And what time is that?
And that's 7:35 and 21 seconds, so just under a minute later.
And what does emergency clear the air mean?
I have an emergency. I need everyone to stop broadcasting on the radio so I can use it. So clear the air.
And what's the next entry?
The next one is shots fired, one subject down.
And what time is that?
7:35 and 27 seconds, so 2 seconds later.
So from this record, are you able to tell us how long this entire event occurred from the time that you arrived on scene until the time that you broadcast shots fired, man down?
Less than 1 minute.
All right. Please take your seat. You had told us that you had a taser on your person.
That's correct, sir.
What experience do you have with the taser?
Before we're authorized to carry a taser, we have to go through extensive training that the department puts on, that's put on by one of our officers who's been through Taser Corporation's school. And we have to have recurrent training every year, and I believe it takes several hours each year, the training.
We're going to get to this a little bit later, but can you just help us out understand where a taser fits in terms of the weapons that you have?
As our levels of force progress, if you were to go up our levels of force, I have to go in order. First is officer presence, and then verbal commands, and then the next level would be soft empty hands, which is sort of a soft controlling technique. And then should that not work and the subject escalates the situation, next would be a taser or pepper spray.
And is there a name for that class?
Intermediate weapons is what it's called, or intermediate techniques.
And what else would be considered to be an intermediate technique?
Taser and pepper spray.
And what about an asp or a baton?
A baton is a higher level.
Right. Did you have a baton that day?
Not on my person.
Where did you keep that?
I keep it in my police vehicle, in my, we keep a bag in the passenger seat, and I have it kind of shoved in there.
And what's the purpose of the baton or the asp?
It's another level of force higher than pepper spray or taser, and that's where it fits into the use of force continuum.
Do you use it for individuals or crowd control or for what?
I generally only grab it when I'm going to a situation where I'm going to use it for crowd control.
All right, so we're at the Wal-Mart. You arrive at about 7:34, approximately, about what time that may be. What do you do? Walk us through the steps at the beginning.
As I show up, based on the information I had, I believe the shoplifter, I must have missed that he was in the parking lot, so I pulled in front of the Wal-Mart thinking that the Wal-Mart employee had the shoplifter in custody, which is usually the case. As I pull in front of the Wal-Mart, Mr. Provo, the loss prevention officer.
Did you know him?
I've met him a few times over the course of several years. I didn't really know him.
Had you worked with him before?
Yeah, but I can't remember it. It's been so long since I've worked with him. You have to understand the Walmart's not in the area I usually work. I go to a lot of calls there, but not as much as someone who works that area.
And if you had worked with him, it would have been in connection with what?
Other shoplifting calls.
All right, so you show up, you meet Mr. Provo. Now, we've seen some pictures of him in the videos. How is he dressed? What's he wearing? Does he have any arms or weapons on him?
No, he doesn't carry any weapons that I'm aware of. I couldn't see any. He has long dreadlocks. He has a long sleeve compression shirt like people wear to work out, like an Under Armour shirt, and he's got basketball shorts on. Now, I couldn't tell what all he was wearing at this point because we're still in our cars.
Okay, so you're side by side in the car?
Yeah, he pulls up so his driver's side window is facing my driver's side window so he could communicate with me.
And what's the point of you talking to Mr. Provo at that point?
He came to me to tell me where the subject was, where the shoplifter was.
And did you ask him any questions? Don't tell us what he told you, but did you ask him anything?
Just some clarification questions, yes, sir.
Because you wanted to be sure of what?
I wanted to be sure that we're talking about the same individual.
And did he make any gestures or point out anybody?
Yes, he did. He pointed towards Mr. Chapman.
Who, did you know him to be Mr. Chapman?
No, who turned out later to be Mr. Chapman.
And your
Yes.
first observations of Mr. Chapman were what?
He was on the far end of the Walmart parking lot, over towards Frederick Boulevard, by where the blue Walmart sign is. And I could see his clothing, which matched the description I was given, and Mr. Provo provided me in person. I believe I asked, is that him with the backpack? And he said, yeah.
Right. Did you see a backpack?
I did see him wear a backpack.
Okay. Was that significant to you at that point?
Not really. I thought it might be where evidence might be contained or something, but it wasn't hugely significant at the time.
And what was Mr. Chapman doing?
He was walking away from the Walmart towards Frederick Boulevard.
And so, pursuant to your training and experience in the police protocol, what was your obligation at that point as a police officer?
Well, I've received a call, and I now have someone telling me a shoplifting has occurred. I'm obligated to go and investigate. So in this case, I would have to stop Mr. Chapman and identify him and conduct whatever investigation needs to be conducted based on how the situation unfolds.
Why didn't you just let him walk away?
Well, I have suspicion and information that a crime has been committed, and as police officers, we're not trained to let people just walk away in a situation like that. I have an obligation to go in and conduct an investigation.
And why didn't you let Mr. Provo conduct the investigation?
Well, he called the police, and we are required to conduct this investigation. It's our job.
Right. So, in this routine call, what would have been your routine procedure?
For a shoplifting call, my procedure would be is I would stop Mr. Chapman and identify him. I would then conduct a search to see if in fact any items had been stolen. And then it can go one of three ways. First of all, if when I check him, if he has a warrant, or if this is a third offense, which makes this a felony, then I have to make the arrest.
You do as a police officer?
Correct. I can't turn anything over to anyone else, to any non-police. Second, if the items that he had stolen are over a specific value, $200, then it becomes a felony and I would have to make the arrest.
And then you have to do that as well as a police officer?
Correct. It wouldn't be something I could turn over to a civilian. Third, and the most common, is that it's a small amount of items stolen, nothing makes it a felony, and in that case I have two options. I can either write him a summons, which is basically similar to writing a traffic ticket, and give that to him and let him go home. Or I can give his information to Mr. Provo and have Mr. Provo go and secure a warrant on his own at his discretion. In any event, I would return any stolen items.
And you would, if it were not a felony, if it were just a misdemeanor, what would you do with Mr. Chapman?
Like I said, I would either write him a summons or I'd allow Mr. Provo to secure a warrant, and either way, he would be going home at that time. He wouldn't be in police custody.
He'd just be on his way?
He'd be on his way.
Was that your mindset as you drove up to Mr. Chapman?
Yes, sir. That's the vast majority of these shoplifting calls. As I go and do a minor investigation, takes maybe 5 minutes, and then everybody's on their way home. I have to do a police report, and I'm done.
Do you approach Mr. Chapman?
I do.
And how do you do that?
As I was discussing earlier, I'm driving my police car up to where Mr. Chapman was walking, and I call in on the radio as my car's still rolling before I even get out of it, that I'll be out with the individual, so that way the dispatcher knows where I am. And I get out of the car and I walk up to Mr. Chapman where he was walking.
Which direction was he going?
He was walking away from the Walmart towards Frederick Boulevard, towards that major road there. And the blue Walmart sign would have been to his right. And I pulled up 10 feet behind him, 8 feet behind him.
Lights and sirens?
No, I didn't think they were necessary.
How do you get out of the car?
I step out of the car, just not rushing or anything, just like it, because it's at this point it's still just a normal shoplifting call.
You're in uniform?
Full uniform with my badge displayed, sir.
Okay. And, right. Go ahead.
I walked up to Mr. Chapman and I said, again, I don't know who he is at this point. I said, I suppose you know why I'm here. And
What type of tone of voice?
it's similar to the way I'm discussing it with you now. It's a regular tone. There's no reason to do anything other than just talk to him in a normal conversational tone at this point.
And what's his response?
I can't remember exactly what he said, but he started walking away from me at a little bit more of a brisk pace. He said something to me, something that indicated he didn't intend to cooperate with me.
And so what was your next step?
When he started to walk away from me, he put his left hand in his front pants pocket. Now at this point, I know I have to detain him to conduct my investigation.
Detain, that's a term of art. What's that mean?
I'm sorry.
No, that's right, just in layman's terms. What's that mean to us?
He's not under arrest, but I can't allow him to leave until I've conducted my investigation.
An investigation means?
I need to identify him, I need to see if any items are stolen, and find out if there's a felony or anything involved, which, like I said, is usually not the case, but I still have to investigate it.
Okay, all right. So what happens next after he starts to walk away?
Well, as police officers, we're trained, and I'm sure everyone's seen at some point in their lives, we're trained to develop a thing for hands. We watch hands. Police officers are always telling you, can I see your hands? Please take your hands out of your pockets, things like that. Because we're trained and it's beat into our head for our entire careers, hands are what hurt you, hands are what kill you. And when he's in his pocket and he's telling me he's not going to cooperate and his hand is stiff in his pocket, I think he's reaching for something. I need to detain him, and I need to take control of that hand and figure out what's in that pocket. So the next thing that I did is I grasped him from the left arm that's in the pocket. I grab him by the wrist and the elbow, and I move him over to my car. I didn't really shove him or anything. I kind of guided him over to my police car.
Now, how far are we talking about in terms of when you first come into contact with him until the time that you walk him over to where your car is? How far is this?
Closer than you and I. I'm going to say 10 feet.
Right? And during that walk back from when you first came into contact with him until the time that you bring him to the car, what's going on between the two of you? What's the level of resistance, if any?
He's resisting, but he's not actively fighting at this point. He's trying to... I'm trying to lock his feet and push so he can go the opposite direction. He's trying to get away from me, but he's not actually fighting me at this point. I would say it's a level of resistance, but it wasn't dangerous at this point. The only danger at this point is the unknown of what's in that pocket, what he's reaching for.
And so at that point, when you're bringing him from point A to point B, do you have any concerns about the level of resistance?
Not about the level of resistance. My concern at this point, primarily from a safety standpoint, from everyone's safety, is what's he reaching for, what's going on.
Right. So where do you get him to?
I bring him over to my police car about where the front driver's side wheel is on the fender, and with my right forearm, my left hand's still on his hand that's in his pocket on the wrist. With my right forearm, I lean him over the police car.
Now, what do you do with his head?
Nothing.
Does his head hit the hood of the car?
Absolutely not. He was... May I demonstrate?
Sure. Well, Judge, with the court's permission.
Well, I'm going to use this to simulate the hood of the car. He didn't go any farther than about like this. All I'm trying to do is take away his leverage so it's harder for him to escape me at this point.
And the car, is that something significant that you're taught to use in your training and experience?
Mostly through experience, yes, sir.
Because it acts as?
It acts as a device we can use to take away someone's leverage, and it makes it harder for them to fight. They can't use their entire body. They can only use isolated muscles.
Right. Are you talking to him?
This whole time I'm calmly talking to him, not much more to my tone than what we're talking about right now. And I'm telling him, stop resisting. Take your hand out of your pockets. I think I said a couple times it's not that big a deal. Just take your hand out of your pocket. I told him, take your hand out of your pocket. I don't know how many times, a lot.
Did he
Stop
take his
resisting.
hand out of his pocket?
No, he didn't.
Did you try and take his hand out of his pocket?
I tried, but with the elbow locked and him being a little bit stronger than me, I wasn't able to get his hand out of his pocket.
All right, now there's been some discussion about the size of Mr. Chapman versus the size of you. Right. How tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
And how much did you weigh back in April?
About 160 pounds.
Now, in terms of Mr. Chapman, number one, did you have any idea how old he was?
No, I thought he was, it certainly wasn't middle-aged, but he was younger than me.
All right. Number two, did you have any idea at this point who he was?
No, sir, I did not.
Had you conducted any of the search or investigative techniques that you were talking about earlier?
No, at this point, I was trying to gain control of the situation so I could begin my investigation. At this point, I couldn't while he was still resisting.
And in terms of his size and his strength, would you characterize that in comparison to you?
He was definitely bigger and stronger than I was.
All right, so you're at the hood of the car. Is there, well, just tell us, what happens next? You're trying to get his hands out of his pocket.
I'm trying to get his hand out of his pocket. I'm telling him, take your hand out of your pocket, take your hand out of your pocket, stop resisting. It's not that big a deal, you know, take your hand out of your pocket. And I've got my forearm, my right forearm braced against his back, and I'm leaning, and I'm, like what I showed you allows me to use my whole body and isolates how much of his body he can use. At this point I decide my soft empty hand techniques, as we've progressed, aren't effective. I'm not controlling the situation. He's still resisting. He's still trying to get away from me, and I still don't know what's in this pocket, and I'm concerned about that. So I told him, take your hand in your pocket or I'm going to tase you.
Now, we've seen on the CAD report that this whole thing happens, looks like about in a minute or so.
Yes,
Give or
sir.
take.
Yes, sir.
Is that accurate?
I believe so.
I mean, how quickly are things happening?
Things are happening very fast. In these situations, when situations escalate like this, they escalate just fast.
And when they escalate that fast and situations happen like that, what do you rely upon?
You go to your training. And the reason we do recurrent training all the time is so that when a situation unfolds that you have to move really fast and think really fast, it becomes instinct because you've done it so many times.
All right. Judge, at this point, I'd ask the court's permission to play the first taser video, please.
You may,
I may. Mr. Rankin, step down.
you may step down.
Thank you.
All right. If you could return, please.
Yes, sir.
What are you saying in that video?
Take your hand out of your pocket. Take your hand out of your pocket.
And where is that video being shot? Where are you?
At this point, he's still up against the hood of the car, and he's able to turn a little bit. So gaining leverage isn't working on him. I had my left arm, I still had it against his back, and I grasped his left, I guess bicep, his upper arm. I took my taser out, and when I turn on the taser, that activates the camera within the taser.
And that's what we saw, the camera and the audio?
The video and audio is from the taser.
And how do you turn it on? We've had we've had Mr. Childs from Taser International talk about safety.
Yes, there's a switch on the side. Some people call it a power switch, some people call it a safety switch, but on the side that can be activated with your thumb, and it's on either side, it just flips up to turn the taser on.
Judge, may I approach the witness and show him exhibit number 20?
You may.
All right, Mr. Rankin, I want you to open this up. And if you could take this out, may he take it out of the plastic, Your Honor?
You may.
May he stand up, Your Honor?
You may stand
All right. Can you describe to the jury, number one, what is that?
This is the taser that I was carrying on the day of the incident. This is an X26 model taser that I was issued by the police department.
Anything unusual, different about it?
Well, it's got some...
We'll get to that in a second, but in terms of what the issue of the taser was.
No, this is how I was issued it. It would have been issued, of course, with the battery and camber combination and 2 cartridges, a spare here, and the the cartridge prepared for use here.
And where's the safety that you had talked about?
Can I take the tape off?
May, Your Honor?
I'll agree with that. You may take it off.
This is the safety. As you can see, it's on both sides, and you're able to operate it just by a flick of the thumb. I'm trying not to. You're able to operate it by a flick of the thumb.
Okay. All right. Put that tape back
Secure.
on. Right there for now.
Sure.
So when you turn on the safety, it turns on the camera and the audio.
That's correct.
And that's what we saw.
That's correct, sir.
So there's no recording of anything before that safety was turned on?
That's correct.
You don't have body cams, or you didn't have a body cam?
No.
Or
I
a
didn't
dash
have
cam
one.
on the car?
No, I didn't have one of those either, sir.
No other recording or audio devices?
No, sir.
All right. So what do we see in that video? What is happening?
I'm trying to keep Mr. Chapman up against the car so I can gain control of the situation. I'm asking him to take his hand out of his pocket, and he's not taking it out of his pocket. And he's, as you can hear, he's saying, tase me, you're not going to tase me, words to that effect. And at that point, I decided that I needed to tase him. I needed to apply the taser. And the reason that I did that is I needed to apply a technique that we call pain compliance. You apply an amount of pain the subject doesn't want anymore, so he'll comply, and then you relieve the pain and the situation's over.
Are you applying pain just for the sake of pain?
Absolutely not. I'm doing it just to get him to start cooperating with me, to not resist arrest anymore.
And we've heard about different techniques by which the taser can be used. Which one did you choose?
I chose to use the drive stun mode.
Which means?
Drive stun is if you have an active cartridge on the front of the taser, you remove it, and then when you activate the taser, there can be an electric arc on the front, and when that touches someone, it can apply an amount of pain.
The alternative is?
The alternative is to fire the actual probes, which are two, they're actually straightened out fish hooks with wires coming off of them, and those penetrate the skin. And once they go through the skin, there's a greater electrical conductivity, and the electrodes are farther apart. And the reason I chose drive stun is my understanding of it is less painful than the probes, and it's less likely to make him, as we discussed before, the muscle lock up and fall over, which is obviously falling over without being able to catch yourself can be dangerous. My goal was to give him a little bit of amount of pain. Being that this is a low-level call, I wanted to use the amount of force that's appropriate to the situation I'm dealing with, and that was the least painful thing I could think of that would still cause pain and hopefully get him to cooperate with me.
And did you deploy your taser?
I did.
Did you drive stun him or shoot the prompt?
I drive stun. I used the drive stun mode.
What was the effect?
This immediately he became enraged, and he became very aggressive. He was no longer just resisting. He was, at that point, this instantly changed into a fight, a very high level fight, a very strong fight. I'm trying to find words to describe how quickly this escalated at that point.
We saw the taser cut off.
Yes, sir.
What caused the taser to cut off?
At some point, it was knocked out of my hands. Mr. Chapman knocked it out of my hand.
Where
And
was the taser at the time?
that it was knocked out of my hand. It was in my hand when he knocked it away.
And where were you in relation to where Mr. Chapman was?
I was still in physical contact with him, and we're both up against the fender right by the front wheel of the police car.
Are you face to face, side to side, back to back? What was the position of the two of you?
I was behind him, but he was turning towards me. I was behind and to the left because I'm using my right arm to try and control him, and he was turning towards me.
And how did the taser get knocked out of your hand?
I'm not sure exactly how he knocked it out of my hand, but I could tell that he turned and made an aggressive movement, and I could feel the taser just go flying out of my hand with great force.
Judge, may I approach the witness again, please?
You may.
again, showing you what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 20. We've looked at this taser before. Can you look at that taser and can you tell us whether or not there's any damage to that taser that did not or was not there prior to the time of your encounter with Mr. Chapman? May he stand up, Your Honor?
You may.
Well, you won't be able to see it from the distance you're at, but there's some cracks in the back of the taser, and this is made out of pretty significant material, so there's some pretty big cracks here, and they weren't there before. And it looks like it might have some minor scuff marks around here, but yeah, as a matter of fact, it's split here, and it wasn't split like that before. So I see maybe 3 or 4 cracks.
From your experience with using a taser, do you know what causes the audio and the visual part of the taser to disengage?
When you shut off the power.
Your Honor, may I show him Commonwealth's Exhibit 6 on the screen?
You may.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
And then Mr. Rankin, come down to look at the picture, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thanks, sir.
All right, Mr. Rankin, do you see the taser in this picture, which is Commonwealth's Exhibit C6?
I do.
And can you point it out to the jury, please?
Yes, sir. It's right here.
And approximately where were you standing at the time that the taser got knocked out of your hand?
We were both up against this wheel here on the police car. That's my car.
And are you able to estimate the distance from that wheel to where that taser ended up landing?
I'm going to say 20 feet.
Did you put the taser there?
No. No, I didn't even know where it landed.
Have a seat, please. So, in your mind, what effect did knocking the taser out of your hand have?
At this point, I've been disarmed. I'm trying to use this device against him, and he's disarmed me of it. And what I'm doing isn't working. I need to go to something that's going to work, and I've used all these lower options. They haven't worked, and the situation has escalated very quickly. What's going on in my mind is my training's coming out, and I need to go to something else.
Did he physically strike you during this encounter at the car?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
The disarming of the taser, did that elevate the situation from the misdemeanor shoplifting before?
Yes, it did. Disarming a police officer of a taser is a felony. And obviously there's an element of violence to this particular case.
Has he listened to any of your orders, commands, statements?
No. He never obeyed any of the commands, any of the instructions I gave him. He never did anything I told him to do.
What happens at the front of the car after the taser's knocked out of your hand?
I'm not sure if he pushed off of me or if I pushed off of him, but we both moved away from each other. I wound up about even with the front bumper of the police car, and he wound up about even with the back of the front door, the front of the back door, just about midway through the car. I hope I'm being clear when I say that.
What about Mr. Provo? Where is he?
I'm not sure where Mr. Provo is at the time.
Do you hear him?
No, sir.
Do you see him?
No, sir. I was pretty focused on Mr. Chapman at the time.
And again, do you know anything about Mr. Chapman, his name, his age, anything about him?
No, sir. Just the actions that I've described up to this point is the only thing I know about him.
And after the two of you pushed away and were at those locations by the car, are you talking to him, saying anything to him?
Once we separated, and again, this is from the time we separated to the next thing I'm describing, a fraction of a second. my training's kicking in. I'm going on what I'm trained to do. I need to go to a higher level of force because everything else isn't working. I drew my pistol and I gave more commands at that point. So a fraction of a second after my taser was knocked away, maybe even a full second, I drew my pistol and began giving more commands.
All right, now you had OC pepper spray.
Yes, sir.
OC pepper spray is also a form of control.
Yes, sir.
That was accessible to you on your belt.
Yes, it was.
Why didn't you deploy that?
At this point, we're not trained to use two intermediate devices. If one doesn't work, we're not trained to go to the other, and the intermediate doesn't work. We need to find another solution.
You heard Chief Wilson talk about that yesterday?
I did.
Was that the way that you were trained?
Yes, it was.
Did you even think about the pepper spray?
I didn't even think about it. My thought process is, this level's not working, I need to find something else.
So the two of you were separated in the police car. What do you do?
I drew my pistol, my department pistol, and I pointed it in his direction. And I started, and at this point, my adrenaline's pumping, and at this point, honestly, I'm scared. He's got my taser, he's overpowered me, he's got away from me, he's not trying to leave, he's facing me, he's being aggressive.
What if he had just turned and walked away?
Objection.
What would you have done?
I would have followed him. I would have been on the radio calling for another unit, at least one more unit, and I would have just followed him until we got more units and we could safely contain the situation.
How do you draw your weapon? What do you do with it?
Again, we train a specific technique to draw our weapon. I drew my weapon, and I'm pointing it in his direction, and I'm telling him, get on the ground. Get on the ground. I just want him to stop. I want to take control. I want to calm everything down and figure out where to go from here. But right now, we need to stop this, put the brakes on, and not fight anymore is what I want.
Okay, so do you know what's in his pocket?
No, I still don't know what's in his pocket.
Are his hands out?
At this point, I'm not sure if his hands were out. Once we separated, I've got 1,000 things racing through my mind. I know he's taken an aggressive posture in order to disarm me, and I'm afraid he's going to continue to attack me and continue to disarm me again.
Why didn't you tackle him? Why didn't you punch him? Why didn't you have some physical contact with him?
Well, I had already been in a physical confrontation, and it wasn't working. I was losing. He had already overpowered me, and he had got my taser away from me, and he had broken away from me. I wouldn't have been able to win in an unarmed fight.
Were you concerned about your weapon?
Yes. 75% of police officers that are shot on the street are shot with their own guns.
Were you concerned about your weapon and about him taking possession of it?
Yes, he had already taken my taser from me. I had no reason to think he couldn't take my...
Objection, Your Honor. That's not what he testified to previously.
He had already gotten my taser away from me. And I had no reason to think that he was going to stop trying to disarm me. I had no reason to think he was going to stop attacking me. And so I was scared.
So you told him, get on the ground, get on the ground.
I told him over and over, get on the ground, get on the ground. I had to be 3 or 4 times. This is a very short period of time, so that's a lot in this short period of time.
Is your tone of voice still conversational at this point?
No, at this point it's elevated. I really want him to stop. I don't want this to go any further because this is very dangerous. This is as dangerous as things get out there.
Did he get on the ground?
No, he didn't.
Did he stop?
No.
Did he do anything that you told him to do?
No, he didn't.
Instead, what did he do?
He charged towards me.
How did that happen?
I'm sorry, I don't know.
What did he do?
Again, I'm not sure exactly where his hands were when he did it, but he ran towards me aggressively, fast. You know, he just came at me just very fast.
Did you count the steps?
I'm sorry, I skipped a step here. While I'm pointing my gun at him, telling him to get on the ground, he replies, he says, shoot me, motherfucker, shoot me. Says it a couple of times.
Is that why you shot him?
No. He did that, and I'm still telling him, get on the ground, despite what he's saying to me.
Do you know how many steps he takes towards you?
I don't know exactly how many steps. At this point, people go, with that kind of adrenaline going, you go through something called tunnel vision, where you focus on a very narrow area that you perceive as being the threat, and at this point it's this general area.
How quickly is he moving, or how slowly is he moving?
It looks like a full run to me.
How close does he get to you?
Well, we started, if you can picture the length of the police car, as I've described, I'm going to call that about 6 feet. He covered about half that distance.
And you did what?
When he was charging at me, I discharged my weapon.
How many times?
I fired 2 rounds.
And did they strike you?
Yes, both of them did.
What are you aiming for?
I'm aiming for, like I've been saying, we're trained to shoot in the center mass, which is the torso area of the body.
Why didn't you aim for his arm? Why didn't you aim for his leg?
Aiming for an arm and a leg, we're trained specifically to not do that because those parts of the body are moving very fast. You know, if you're running and your body's moving at a certain speed, your legs are moving twice that fast, and they're going in different directions. Same with your arms. They're hard to hit, and even if you do hit them, there's no guarantee that that's actually going to stop the person. Through years of, trainers have determined that shooting someone in the torso is the most likely way to stop someone from doing the action that they're doing that made you need to stop them.
Did you shoot to kill him?
No, I wanted to stop him.
Did you intend to kill him?
Absolutely not.
What did you intend?
I wanted to stop him from attacking me because he was very aggressively coming at me. He was attacking me, and I felt I needed to save my life.
Why did you shoot twice?
All of our training is shoot multiple rounds at a time. I fired 2 rounds, which is the drill that's taught in all our annual firearms training. Sometimes it's 2 rounds, sometimes it's 3 rounds. But I fired the 2 rounds just like we're trained to do, and I reassessed.
Did you have more bullets in your magazine?
Yes, sir, I had.
Could you have shot more if you had wanted to?
I could have.
Can you describe to the jury what happens when a weapon fires?
When the trigger's pressed, I'll have to describe a little bit about what a cartridge is. There's a brass case with a bullet in the front and gunpowder in the back. And when the trigger is fired, the gun strikes the back of the cartridge and burns the gunpowder, which causes the bullet to come out the front of the gun. And the gun uses the energy from that to throw out the brass case and pick up a new bullet and be ready to fire again. Is that clear?
What happens to the weapon in terms of once you fire, what's the action or reaction of the weapon?
You experience something called recoil, or sometimes called kick.
Can you put your hands up and show us?
When you fire a pistol, it pushes back and upward towards you. But I guess any firearm, it pushes back and upwards towards you.
Did you intend to shoot him in the head?
No, I was aiming for center of mass, and I fired 2 very fast rounds, and I believe the recoil walked the second round up because I was recoiling as I fired the second round.
What happened next?
After I fired my 2 rounds, Mr. Chapman fell to the ground.
What did you do?
I immediately got on the radio and called in, as you can see, shots fired, suspect down, I think is what I said. And then I ran to him and applied handcuffs because we're trained to apply handcuffs, and then I immediately started first aid.
Did you see Mr. Provo?
As I was applying first aid was the first time I really got a good look at where Provo was.
And where was he?
He was on the far side of my police car, maybe 20 or 30 feet from me.
In which direction was he coming?
From the Wal-Mart towards me. Frederick Boulevard would have been on my back. I'm facing towards the Wal-Mart at this point, and so he would have been ahead of me, looking past my police car.
And what are you telling Mr. Chapman?
You can hear in the video my voice is very shaky at this point. I'm like, don't die, breathe. I'm as I'm giving first aid, I'm trying to find a pulse, and I'm hoping if he can at least hear me, I can give him some sort of, don't die, come on, keep going, keep breathing.
Judge, may I show Commonwealth's Exhibit 3 to the witness, please?
You may.
Judge, may I approach?
You may.
And may I ask Mr. Rankin to step down, Your Honor?
You may step down.
Mr. Rankin, this is the best we're going to be able to do with the glare, so this is the scene, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to focus upon one thing in particular. You said that after Mr. Chapman went down, you went over to him and you handcuffed him.
Yes, sir.
To the left of Mr. Chapman, there appears to be a backpack.
Yes,
You
sir.
see that?
Yes, sir.
When you handcuffed Mr. Chapman, was that backpack on him?
No, sir.
Do you know how the backpack got on the ground like that?
I don't, sir. It must have.
No, if you
I
don't know,
don't-
you don't
I
know.
don't.
At the time that the two of you were at the police car, did you ever see him rip off that backpack?
I didn't notice. I was really focused on hands, trying to control the situation and trying to gain control and gain compliance.
But you did not take that backpack off of him.
That's correct.
Did you even notice the backpack when you went to him to perform any sorts of CPR?
No. I was very focused on trying to give him first aid.
Point out the location on the police car where the first contact between the two of you occurred.
I'm sorry, by first contact, do you mean first physical?
Correct.
Okay. I walked him over from this general area and placed him up against the police car around the fender around this area.
And where was it that the taser got knocked out of your hands? Where were you?
We were still in this area.
And where was it when the two of you separated? Where was your position on the car?
He had moved about to this area on the car, and I was right by the front bumper, and we were both pretty close laterally to the car.
And how close did he get to you from where he was by that car before you discharged your weapon?
Well, I discharged my weapon as he was running, so it would have been as he traversed this area. You can see his feet are about where he fell.
When you performed CPR or rolled him over to do the handcuffing, did you move his body in any other direction?
No, I moved it like rolling this direction. I didn't move it this way, and I didn't shift it sideways. I just rolled it so I could get handcuffs on.
So the location of where his feet are in that picture represent what?
About right where he finally fell to the ground.
And where were you at the time that you discharged your weapon in that picture by the police car?
I was in this area right here by the front bumper. So we were very close.
I'm showing you again what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit number 6. Can you point, you've already pointed out where the taser is. Can you point, is that picture at all help you as to where you were when you first made contact with Mr. Chapman?
When I first walked up to him?
Correct.
It would have been this general area around here. It was kind of out diagonal from my car.
And showing you what's been marked as Commonwealth's Exhibit 4. Again, we've already had testimony about the circles, about those representing your cartridges, about where were you standing in that particular picture, and which direction were you facing in that particular picture at the time that you discharged your service weapon.
I would have been right around this area, just straight out from the bumper. And I've been facing this direction, parallel with the car, same as the side of the car.
And to the right of the picture, do you see another circle? Let me point it out for you. Do you see this?
This one?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That is the cartridge from my Taser that I removed from the front of the cartridge of the Taser. I mean,
Did you throw it over there?
no, I just dropped it.
Do you know how it got to that particular position?
I don't.
And also what's reflected in this picture right here? See that?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That's the Taser.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 1A. It's kind of hard to see, but what's on your hands?
This is all. It's all blood.
And what is that from? What does that represent?
When I was doing CPR, he was on the ground, and I know we're supposed to put on our gloves before we render aid to someone that has anything on them, but I was in a hurry and I really wanted to start CPR. So this is all from me doing, all this blood is from me doing CPR without gloves on.
But you could return to your seat. At a later point, you did what you call glove up, though?
Eventually, yes, sir.
Did any officer come assist you in your CPR methods?
The first one to come was Detective Manning. As a matter of fact, the only police officer that assisted me with CPR was Detective Manning.
And did the two of you continue to work on Mr. Chapman?
We did.
And what did you do in addition to that after Detective Manning arrived?
After Detective Manning arrived, I told him to get his gloves on. He put his gloves on, and I told him to take over chest compressions while I put my gloves on. I was doing chest compressions the whole time while this is going on. And he took over chest compressions while I was putting my gloves on. And then I believe I took it back from him next. So I continued doing chest compressions.
Did anyone relieve you from performing the chest compressions?
I was eventually relieved by one of the medics off the ambulance.
And why did you stay until the medics arrived?
I was continuing to try and give life-saving measures. I really, really didn't want him to die. I didn't want to hurt him at all. I certainly didn't want him to pass away, and I was working really hard to try and keep his heart going.
At this point, did you know anything about him, his age, or his name, or his identity, or anything of that nature?
Honestly, I didn't know anything about anything about him until several days after this was over.
You knew he was an African-American man?
Well, I did know that, yes, sir.
Did that have anything to do with your actions on this day?
No, it would have been the same with any person of any race or gender.
After the medics took over, what did you do?
After the medics took over, I walked away from the scene, and one of the officers that was photographing the scene, they try and do that as quickly as they can. I told him I need to be photographed, and I need to have what's called a gunshot residue kit applied to me.
Judge, if we could play the second Taser video at this point, please. And may Mr. Rankin come down, Your Honor?
You may come down, sir.
Thank you, sir.
May we retrieve the one that's right side up? 57. May we retrieve 57, Your Honor? Do you think it'd be easier for all of us? And while Ms. Belote is setting this up, you had talked about a mask that you used.
Yes, sir.
What is that?
After Detective Manning had come to assist me, at a certain point I decided that I've been doing chest compressions for a while. We need to get some air to this guy. So I ran to my police car, which you'll see here in a minute, and I grabbed, it's a CPR mask. It's a device that you can put over the person's mouth to assist you and be able to breathe with your mouth into their body to give them air, so that if they can't breathe on their own, you can help them breathe.
And was there any concerns
I
that...
don't see why. She doesn't.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
She's ready.
Let me just ask one more question. Was there any concerns about the mask or any contents of the mask?
When I brought the mask back, I was wearing my gloves at this point, but I had blood on my gloves. I took the mask out, and I had gotten some of his blood on the mouthpiece of the mask where I put my mouth, which is kind of a dangerous situation. It's contrary to our training to put something with his blood into my mouth, but nevertheless, I really wanted to help. I really wanted to keep him alive. So I put my mouth on the CPR mask that had his blood on it and continued giving him mercy breaths.
Okay. Judge, if you may step down now, please.
You may step down.
Thank you, sir.
Do we know that screen? Oh, here we go.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's Mr. Provo, yes, sir.
His voice is on.
That's me saying, "Don't die on me, bro. Talk to me, man." I'm calling in. I'm sorry, I was.
Take your seat. My apologies, Your Honor.
No, no problem.
What were you saying in the video at the beginning? Mr. Chapman.
I was telling him, "Don't die on me, bro. Talk to me, man." So I was hoping I could get him to respond to me.
And then we heard some other talk by you. Who were you talking to at that point?
I was on the radio with the dispatcher. I had already called in, as I talked about earlier, and it's not captured in the video, shots fired, subject down. And the radio, they broadcast to all the units what's happening, where I'm at. But at this point, what is on the video is I'm calling in, giving my location, clarifying my location, because the Wal-Mart's a big place, saying, I'm by Frederick Boulevard, I'm across from the IHOP. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was giving them a better description of exactly where I was. And I'm telling them to get medics on the way. It's our procedure. We have to stage the medics. They can't come in until some more officers have showed up. But I'm telling them to get medics rolling so we can get them in as quickly as possible.
Now, when is the first time that you saw Mr. Provo on the scene?
When I started talking to him.
And did you know, was he standing next to you at the time that you discharged your weapon?
No, I'm pretty sure I would have noticed if he was standing right next to me.
Let's assume for the sake of discussion that he was standing next to you.
Yes, sir.
Would you have gotten him involved in this situation?
Absolutely not. At this point, it's become one of the most dangerous situations a police officer can be faced with. I'm certainly not going to put a civilian in danger in something like that. That would just, it would be dangerous for him. I'm not going to put another person in danger.
Did you ever call to him to assist you?
No.
Did he have any weapons that you were aware of?
No, not that I was aware of.
Judge, if I could show the witness, we're going to go to the Defendant's Exhibit 5.
You may.
Judge may approach.
You may.
I have a little jet, I'm sorry. So, Mr. Rankin, this is the Portsmouth General Orders Manual that was in effect at the time of April the 22nd of 2015, as testified to yesterday by Chief Wilson. You recall that?
I do, sir.
And this is Defendant's Exhibit 5. Is this the, well, Judge, may I ask him to step down?
You may step down.
Thank you, sir.
Is this the training method that you had talked about that you had received in the academy?
Yes, sir. This was the general order that was in effect at the time of this incident.
And is this what you were retrained on each year
Yes, sir.
up until the time of the event?
Yes, sir.
So, the bottom, it says use of force considerations. Can you read that?
Yes, sir. It says, officers are frequently confronted with situations requiring the use of force to make an arrest and/or to ensure public safety. The degree of force used depends on what the officer perceives as reasonable and necessary based upon the totality of circumstances. And it continues facts on the next page. Facts or circumstances unknown to the officer will not be considered in later determining whether or not the force was justified.
All right, now,
Object, Your Honor. At this time, I'm going to say this is improper foundation for him to be reading this document into evidence.
I read in the evidence.
all right. Number 2 is use of force continuum. Do you see that?
I do, sir.
And is this that ladder that you were talking about before?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, is there a requirement that you go through 1 through 7, step by step by step?
No, you're trained to use the force that's appropriate to the situation. For example, if you're confronted with a violent situation, simple officer presence wouldn't be enough to contain the situation in most cases.
Well, let's go through this. Number 1, simple officers or professional presence identification. Did you do that?
Yes, sir. I arrived on scene. I was wearing my uniform and I was in a marked police car, and I was very clear that I was a police officer.
Number 2, verbalization. Did you do that?
I did. I asked
You
Mr.
can have a
Chapman.
seat. You can have a seat.
Thank you.
Sorry, Your Honor.
I asked Mr. Chapman to step over my police car. I asked him to stop I told him to stop resisting repeatedly. I told him to show me his hands. I told him repeatedly it's not a big deal. Just show me your hands. Stop resisting. And eventually I told him to get on the ground repeatedly.
Number 3, soft control techniques. Did you do that?
I did. When I took him by the arm and by the wrist, I wasn't exerting any painful or joint lock techniques. I was just walking him to my car.
Number 4, intermediate techniques. Did you do that?
I did. I used my taser.
Number 5, hard control techniques. Did you do that?
When we shoved off of each other, I guess you could call that hard control techniques. But at that point, when the taser had been knocked away from me, when Mr. Chapman hit the taser away from me, the situation spiked to where using any sort of unarmed technique wouldn't be appropriate. I wouldn't have been able to control the situation. I wouldn't have been able to calm the situation down using any kind of hard techniques like a takedown or anything like that.
Number 6, special impact police canine. Did you have a dog?
I did not have a dog.
Number 7, lethal deadly force. That's the last resort.
Unfortunately, that's the last resort, and that's where I had to go.
That's all the questions I have. May I return these to the clerk?
Okay. What about the ones that she was using?
Yes, sir, I'm going to get those too, please.
Members of the jury, we're going to take a short recess. Get you some more, stretch your legs, get you some coffee, okay?
All rise.